Hello YouTubers, this is your friendly neighborhood Theophage. This video is the first in a series I'm going to do on the various arguments for the existence of God and how these arguments fail. I don't know how long it'll take me to get through them all, but keep checking back for more. The cosmological argument is one of many arguments purporting to prove that a God exists. As an atheist, I don't believe that any God or gods really do exist. If these arguments are valid and sound, then it would mean that atheism is proven to be false, and there's no way I could honestly call myself an atheist. So is the cosmological argument valid and sound? Let's take a look at it and see. There are actually two forms of the argument from contingency and the Kalam cosmological argument, most famously argued by Christian apologist and philosopher Dr. William Lane Craig. They are both refuted by a similar response, so I'm going to go ahead and just deal with the form of the argument as given by Dr. Craig. It looks something like this. 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. 2. The universe began to exist. 3. Therefore, the universe had a cause. Now, as you may have noted, simply saying that the universe had a cause doesn't mention anything about a God. But Dr. Craig argues further that when we look at the implied attributes of the cause of the universe, that cause looks amazingly like a theistic God, specifically the God of Christianity. These implied attributes are that the cause of the universe must be immaterial, because matter only exists within the universe, atemporal or timeless, because time only exists within the universe, an intelligent being, because of the inherent design and the fine-tuned nature of the universe, and a personal being, because he created humans as intelligent personal beings. Already, the argument runs into a fatal flaw. As YouTuber Qualia Soup so eloquently put in one of my favorite videos, a changeless mind is by definition non-functioning. This means that if there is a being with a mind that exists timelessly, that being cannot think or do anything. Why? Because thinking and doing require change, and change requires time. A timeless being that does anything is a self-contradictory idea, and thus cannot logically exist. So, we could stop our examination of the argument right here and rightfully declare it busted. But let's add insult to injury. Let's go back and look at premises 1 and 2 of the argument above and see if we can't find another reason why this argument fails. Premise 1 states that whatever begins to exist has a cause. Now, this is generally reasonable, and certainly it agrees with our everyday experience. The key to this premise, however, is what it means exactly to begin. I'll get back to that in a moment. Premise 2 states that the universe began to exist. This is where this argument is criticized most by non-believers, since many of them believe that the universe has simply existed always and forever. In defense of his argument, Dr. Craig attempts to show that it is impossible for the universe to have existed for an infinite amount of time. One way he does this is by differentiating between an actually infinite thing and a potentially infinite thing. The time from now until the future is only potentially infinite, because even though it may never come to an end, it also never gets there. It just keeps going. If there was an infinite amount of time in the past, however, it would have gotten here to the present already, and thus be an actual infinity. Dr. Craig argues that actually infinite things cannot logically exist. So this is very strange, given that presumably Dr. Craig believes in the existence of an actually infinite God. Self-contradiction, anyone? His main support of premise 2 is the Big Bang theory and the findings of modern cosmology, which show that the universe began, as far as we can tell, roughly 13 billion years ago. It's kind of nice seeing a prominent Christian apologist actually supporting the findings of science, though apparently only the findings that he has decided already agree with him, since he argues against evolution as the source of design in living things. I personally have no problems with the findings of science, and I accept that the universe is only about 13 billion years old as well. So, do I also accept the argument's conclusion that the universe required an outside cause? I do not, and here's why. What does it mean for something to begin to exist? Roughly, it means that there was one point in time when the thing in question did not exist. Then there was an interval of time where the thing was brought into existence by some sort of cause, and finally, later, a point in time where we can say that the thing now exists. This is true of many things, from man-made items like cars and toys, to natural things like stars and tornadoes, to unseen things like thoughts and ideas, and even to each of us as humans. There was a time before we existed. There was a time when we were caused by our parents, and there is now the time we exist. Note the temporal sequence from past to future. Causation is a temporal process, meaning it takes place within time. Now let's look at some exceptions to that. If something has existed for an infinite amount of time, we can say that such a thing not only does not need to be caused, such a thing cannot have been caused. There was no point in time at which the thing did not exist, and thus no interval of time where it could have been caused. It was always there. It never began. Similarly, an atemporal thing which exists outside of time would also neither need nor be able to have had a cause for the exact same reasons. There was no point in time before it existed, and no interval of time when it could have been caused. But even though the universe apparently began about 13 billion years ago, which is a very long but finite amount of time, it did not begin in a causal sense. All the things I mentioned above which began, cars, stars, tornadoes, and us, are only finitely old, yet there was a time before they existed. The universe is also only finitely old, but if we agree that time is a property of the universe, and thus did not exist before the universe existed, then we can rightly say that there was no point in time when the universe did not exist. It has always existed. That may take a little time to sink in, so let me repeat that. If time began with the universe, then there was no point in time when the universe did not exist. It has always existed. Note that when I say always here, it doesn't necessarily mean for an infinite amount of time. If there was no point in time when the universe did not exist, then there was also no interval of time where it could have been caused. Does this sound familiar? Yes. The very same reasons why a thing which existed infinitely does not need a cause is the exact same reasons why a timeless thing does not need a cause, which is exactly the same reasons why something that began with time itself does not need a cause. In all three cases, there was no time at which the thing did not exist. This is somewhat different from the way we normally experience things, since we normally experience them from within the flow of time. But it is not outside of our ability to reason and understand. When premise 1 of the argument talks about things which begin needing a cause, it is using the fallacy of equivocation. It is really only applicable to things which begin within time, not things which began at the beginning of time. This is a special case, and thus is treated in a special way, just like the other special cases of an infinitely long existence and a timeless existence. So, as I've shown in this video, not only is it impossible for God to have created the universe as a timeless being, the fact that time began with the universe is sufficient to show that the universe not only does not need a cause, but also it could not possibly have had a cause. Thus, the cosmological argument for the existence of God is refuted, and thus atheism wins the day once again, at least for now. There are plenty of other so-called proofs of God's existence, and I will go through them all one by one and show how they fail in future videos. Stay tuned, and thanks.